Hello and welcome to the TLC Designs YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted here on YouTube, and today I am going to make something that's a bit of a first for me. This is going to be an actual spinning pinwheel. I'm starting with this 4x4 section of pattern paper from the Fairyland Slimline Designer paper pack. And the papers from TLC Designs are single-sided, so what I've already done in advance is I cut two sheets down to 4x4 and glued them together so that essentially I'm creating my own custom double-sided pattern paper, which is kind of nice because then you can really choose exactly which pattern you want on the front and the back. Then I took a moment to, along the two diagonals, I drew a pencil line that starts 3/4 of an inch away from the center all the way out to the corner, and I did that for all four corners. So if you place your ruler from corner to corner, what I did was I just lined up the center mark with any number on my ruler, like I was using the 5-inch mark, for example. And then just making a pencil mark from 3/4 of an inch away from that center, I just drew a line all the way out to the corner, to both corners. So I did that on all four corners. And now I am just going to cut right on top of that pencil mark. And this is going to help us to create that classic pinwheel, which is a lot of fun. Actually, I've never made one before, but it's really just this easy. And if you already have double-sided pattern paper, then that works out really well. But I love these papers because they coordinate so well together, but there's a lot of different combinations that you can choose. So that's why it's kind of nice to work with single-sided papers and get to pick and choose what you want to use. Now I've used my pokey tool to create a hole right in the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start poking holes through the these little triangle sections here. So if you look at each triangle, you basically want to poke a hole, move to the opposite end of that section of cardstock, skip that, and then poke a hole on the next section. So basically, if you look at the square as 4 triangles, you only want a hole poked through on one corner of each of those triangles. So I'm going to poke a hole here. And then along that straight edge, I'm going to skip that, and then I'm going to move to my next triangle section and poke a hole there. So you're always going to have a hole, whether you choose it to be on the left side or the right side of that long edge of your triangle. That's up to you, but be consistent though. So if you start poking holes on the left corner of your triangle, then all of your triangles should have a hole in the left corner. And then I'm using a mini brad to actually stick through each of the corners of our triangle sections, and then finally through that middle hole that we poked through the center of the pinwheel. And that's the pinwheel created. So because we have the double-sided paper, you get some of that really pretty pattern paper that comes through, and it's just a really neat effect. And you might want to play with how does this look with the solid curling in. You might want to reverse it just to see which effect looks better for you. But because the pattern papers are white core, what I'm doing is I'm just inking all of the edges. And there are a lot of edges because of the cuts, the slits that we made. So I'm being careful to remember to catch those as well. And I've used a ink that I think will coordinate really well with that purple. It's actually Seedless Preserve, which I didn't think that I had in my stash, but I actually do. It's running a little dry, but it's enough to kind of ink all of these edges, and it just hides that white so that the white isn't so prominent. And I think ultimately that gives a little bit of a cleaner finish. So I'm using my bone folder to also curl those sections that have the hole poked through them, because those are the ones that are being brought into the center. And that just helps to soften the paper, really get it to take that curl a lot better. And with the pinwheel complete, now I'm thinking about how I actually want to put this onto a card. Now, this is not going to be the kind of card that you can easily put through the mail, so it would be the sort of card that maybe you would create an envelope box for, and if you were to put it through the mail, maybe this would be the sort of card that you would want to include with a present so that it's in a sturdy box and it won't get crushed. Or the kind of card where you would put it together and deliver it by hand, for example, because you don't want the curls of your pinwheel to get crushed through shipping or anything like that. So it is a rather dimensional card, but it's a really fun interactive one that I think would be really nice for anyone, but probably kids in particular. All I did just a moment ago was I took one of the prints from the pattern paper, which has this really cute little sort of angel boy, and I fussy cut him out. And what my plan was for him is to use him in the center of the pinwheel so that he looks like he's spinning all the way around. And as well, he serves the purpose of actually hiding that silver brad, which is nothing special. So I wanted to try to hide that as much as possible. So he's there to be cute, but also there to hide that brad. Now, I've taken another piece of pattern paper from the Fairyland paper pack, and this one is in this really nice pink color, which coordinates really beautifully with the print that I chose as the accent for my pinwheel. And I want to jazz it up just a little bit because it is a solid paper, and so all I've done was I took 2 stamps from the stamp set Totally For You. It's the X and the O for Hugs and Kisses, and I am inking just a really messy background, so very distressed. Sometimes I'm doing second generation inking where I stamp off first and then I stamp onto my paper. That just gives a little bit more variation and a little bit more of that distressed look. And that way I'm not really looking for perfect impressions. It's all meant to be just a little bit sloppy, a little bit different. And that just helps to give that pattern paper a little bit more interest so it doesn't look quite so plain. Then to get this element to, it is a pinwheel, so the expectation is that it will actually spin. So to get it to spin, what I will do is through this panel, I've already poked a hole. I punched out 2 circles or discs that are 1.5 inches in diameter, and I'm going to poke holes through those as well. And then I'm going to use another mini brad to fasten the disc through the panel, and then on the back side I'm going to put another disc. And what purpose this serves is to actually attach, have an element that is attached to our panel here, which ultimately will get attached to the card base. And that keeps the panel stationary, but the elements that are being secured by the brad will be able to rotate. And that is how I'm going to achieve the spinning aspect of the pinwheel, because the pinwheel is going to get attached to the disc that's on the top here, which can now freely spin around because it's not going to be glued down to anything. It's held in place by the brad. And so to attach this and make sure that there isn't any friction that would inhibit the disc from spinning, I'm using a little bit of foam on the back of my panel, and that gives it some room so that it's not pressed down super tightly, and hopefully that allows it to spin. And the reason why I took it apart just now was to actually widen all of the holes a little. Again, in order to ensure that when the pinwheel is attached to this, that it spins really freely, that there isn't any friction. Because once I get this panel glued down, I'm not going to have access to open up the legs of the brad anymore. So I want to make sure that everything is as I want it to be, everything moves as I would like it to be, and as soon as it's down, the panel will be stationary, and I won't have access to make any adjustments to the brad at that point. Now, the final thing I'll do is, again, using a little bit more foam. Now, this foam serves the exact same purpose as the foam that I placed on the back of the panel. So you can see I'm putting it only on that circular disc and basically surrounding my brad. And the reason for this is because my pinwheel needs to get attached to this disc, but I don't want to glue it flat and directly onto the disc because we have the brad there, which might actually crush into the pinwheel. It might inhibit the movement a little bit. So the foam is meant to just bring everything to essentially the same level as the head of the brad, and that way when I attach my pinwheel to it, I just need to add a little bit of glue to those foam strips, and then I don't have to worry too much about the brad poking into my pinwheel. Now, to attach my little angel boy, I ended up actually cutting off his wings, and I cut away quite a bit of him. There's all that's left is his head, his arms, and the little blueberry that he's holding, and that's because he was rather large for that space. But I did fill that center with some 3D glue gel, and that's just a really nice thick glue, and it's great for when you're attaching something where the surface underneath it is uneven, like the center of this pinwheel. And so I just put a nice big glob of glue right in the center there, and I've stuck down my my little image there that I fussy cut out from the pattern paper. Now, for my sentiment, I picked out a sentiment from Totally For You. It's really a sweet one. It says, "I love you, I love who you are," which I think is really, really wonderful. And so I've inked that, stamped that out in the same Seedless Preserve ink that I used to ink the edges of my pinwheel to remove that white core of the cardstock. And I'm using just a bit of that leftover purple cardstock to add an extra matte layer behind my sentiment, just to bring some more of that purple out. And that is going to pretty much complete my card. It's a very dimensional card with the pinwheel, but the papers are beautiful. Lots of fun to create these, and it's a very fun interactive card that I think is going to bring joy to whoever receives it. So it's just one that's going to take a little, maybe a special envelope box to put it into, or maybe a different sort of delivery method to ensure that it doesn't get crushed. But well worth it, I think, for the fun experience. I hope that you like this card today, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.